In today's Customer IO Basics video, we're going to go over people. Let's dive in. People make up the contacts of your database. You can see I've got the list of people here on my screen, and I can get to that by clicking on the left-hand side. There's an option for people. Now I can look at the list, and I can also change the columns or attributes that I want to see, but the focus of today is actually going to be the window of an individual person. And what can I see about them? All right, so here is a view of my record in Customer IO. And we're going to go through all of these different sections, which are very closely related to these tabs at the top. So this is more of like what it says. There's like an overview. It's a more summarized view of these tabs. So it leads out with your subscription preferences. And this says disabled because I actually haven't enabled them. So it's essentially a global or a nothing. But if you have subscriptions enabled, which we'll do in a different video, they all come in here, and it allows contacts or people to subscribe and unsubscribe to individual preferences. So like in this case, I have two: email courses and newsletter. I could unsubscribe from newsletter but stay with email courses. Attributes store the data that describe a record. So in a lot of other systems, they'll call them fields, properties. In Customer IO, they're called attributes. They lead out with identifiers, meaning the unique values that Customer IO or you might use to identify an individual. Customer IO always has their own ID. They use email as an ID. And then there's also just the normal ID, which usually comes from your application. Then there's the rest of the attributes that you decide to create, and you can view the values that exist. It will only show you attributes that exist. It won't show you any blank attributes because Customer IO actually has a unique way of creating attributes. Recent activity will show all the events, all the form submissions, and other activities, email engagement that has happened with that person in the recent past. So you can see recently an attribute on my record was changed. You'll also see the most recent deliveries. So that'll include emails sent and webhooks and notifications. As for segments, it splits out our segments by data-driven segments and manual segments. And if this record participates in any of those, they are all listed here. Devices show up if you've set up the mobile SDK for your app. And then relationships are if you've set up any objects or custom objects that that person is related to. For example, if they work for a company, that company would show up here. Now, you can dive into deeper views of almost all of these sections by clicking more, or in this case, view all, and it goes straight to the tab. Or you can click on any of these tabs above. So attributes will give you the full view and adds in the recent changes just from the attributes. Relationships are there, segments, it does the same thing. It brings it up in a whole list. And in this view, it'll actually show you the list that they belong to, as well as the list that they don't belong to, which can help for troubleshooting. The devices window is there, and then the rest of these are their engagement windows, right? So if there's any workflows or campaigns that they're a part of and the emails have been drafted but not sent, those will be listed out here for that individual. You can see all of their sent messages, all of the activity related to that person, so events, form submissions, and page views, and then any campaigns that have journeyed or are active in. And it actually splits these out by the way they are triggered. So segment triggered campaigns, event triggered, and so forth. There you also have a few options to work with the record up here at the top right. You can add shortcuts with integrations that you constantly use with customers. So say like you have your checkout through Stripe, you can set up a link to then bring up that customer in Stripe. The internal options are to unsubscribe that individual from marketing email. You can export their data, merge them with another person, and that's a one-off thing. You can manually send an event and create this, which is helpful for testing, or if there were data issues and you need to create something manually for a record. You can add relationships, and then of course delete that record forever. So that's the people object. It's pretty straightforward, but I hope it's helpful as I explain out the different sections, and we'll see you next time.